Right, so we got some questions. This will be a separate post, but got some, and I'll just repeat the question.
Okay,
Is that right? So what's your question again?
Yeah, so my question was like, as someone who's just into networking so far, but wants to get into security and like has time over the summer, what would you recommend, doing or looking into?
So the question is somebody that is just starting to take networking courses, but wants to start getting into security, what can they do over the summer?
Rick, makes an excellent transition to your networking content, which is available free on the internet. There's plenty of like good videos, both from Rick and other people, although I only recommend Rick's. Any sort of hands-on lab, any sort of reading you can do, find what interests you and just go crazy. Because that way, if you're into it, then it's like, oh, I didn't waste my summer. I actually had fun learning. Maybe take your laptop and a book, go outside under a tree, like just don't stay inside all the time. We live in a beautiful part of the country. Yeah, just stuffing your brain. Because if you're forcing yourself to learn something, then you're like, oh God, this was a miserable summer. So find what you like. And yeah, I was going to say like focus on something, but no, it's more like if you don't know what you're into yet, then kind of like do a little bit of everything. And then once you find something, then deep dive into that. But yeah, there's so much good YouTube content. I'm sure there's some like virtual things you get through the university for labs or
Yeah, and then,
maybe.
I think there's like some cybersecurity camps out there, and both virtual and in person, and mostly virtual, I think. So, especially over the summer. Matter of fact, there's one that was posted by at Cabrillo that I just got an email yesterday, so I can send out to everybody. But yeah, I just take a look what Bryan says, see what's out there. So there's a lot of great stuff online, a lot of like websites that have a series of labs that you can do and learn more about security that way. But just find stuff that you find interesting, and don't feel too like intimidated by everything. The more you learn, the more you're going to realize what you don't know. And that's okay. That's okay as you get experience. You're like, oh, okay, you're comfortable with that. But when you're new, you feel like, oh my, you think everybody knows that stuff. Not everybody knows all this stuff.
Yeah, nobody knows it. Yeah, and that reminds me, I mean, it's always like that. Always be learning and always realize that no matter how smart you are, there's always someone smarter than you. There's also somebody that's less smart than you. So be nice to everybody, but also keep learning. And you're gonna just be, when you first dive in, you're gonna be like, oh God, I'm in the deep end of the pool, I'm freaking out. There's so much to learn. But that's anything new you try in life. Like how old am I now? I'm going to be 44, so technically old, and I'm just now starting to learn guitar for the first time, just because I was like, oh, now I have some free time. I was never interested as a kid, and now for some reason I'm interested. So I'm just starting. I'm like, oh my God, I have so much to learn. My brain hurts. I suck. It's depressing, but make a little bit of progress at a time, keep with it, persistence, passion, all that stuff, and I'm slowly getting better. So eventually, like, maybe I'll play Mary Had a Little Lamb or something, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but you'll get there.
We'll have to check out the Grateful Dead room.
Yeah.
How many of you know who the Grateful Dead are? Okay, not everybody. And you're not old at 44.
No, thanks.
No.
I get the gray hair.
Any others? Yes.
Thank you, Bryan, for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
It was a fantastic talk. I just recently got a job as a network technician here at school. I was wondering if there's any advice I could have for when I start off next fall quarter.
So just to repeat that, so I got a job as a network technician here at UCSC, and you're looking for advice of what, for just how to get started, like career advice or working in the job. Any advice from Bryan?
Yeah, get to know the networking people because they're important. They make the internet work. So it's one of those. Kind of when you go to a new job, you realize that the executive assistant and the people in like facilities and things are very important because they know everything. They're like in the right position to know everything that's happening in the company, even though no one really thinks about them much. They think about like, oh, the CEO or oh, this fancy salesperson. But the people who are most plugged into the knowledge, And also who can make your life the most miserable are some of those people. So like, if you piss off the networking guys, like, oh no, I can't get to the internet. I wonder why. Like that kind of thing. But yeah, just getting to know them, getting to know what they're working on, what they need help with. Because if you can make yourself indispensable to them, or at least just like really helpful, they will love you because they need the help, they need the extra hands, and then you'll get to learn stuff from them. They'll pull you in on cool projects eventually and all that sort of stuff. So just, kind of like that whole people networking side of it. And then I don't know how much base level of like networking tech stuff you have, but if you can find out ahead of time what kind of stuff you're going to be working on, then you can like go read a bunch about that and like maybe play with some of that stuff at home too. Does that kind of answer? Was like, okay.
If I could add, and some things that I've done is like ask questions. People, it's people that love it when you are curious about what they're doing. And they want, they love to be able to help you and tell you if you initiate that. And part of that, the second part of that is show gratitude. To everybody in the organization. I get along really well with everybody in facilities. Not because I have to, but because I really appreciate everything they do. So
yeah, related to that whole, like I mentioned, people don't think about, say, the janitors or facilities or the networking team or the IT team, but they do important work and they realize that, oh, if I unplug the internet connection for the entire campus, like my job is important. It's really important, kind of like when the power goes out or the water goes out, people realize, oh, maybe we should be nice to the networking team and the IT team because they're doing something very important. We don't think about them until it breaks.
nobody calls and just says, thanks, you,
yeah.
the lights are working.
Oh, that's another good piece of career advice. Say thank you and appreciate people, have gratitude, because especially the people that, are kind of like behind the scenes, so they feel appreciated, but also in some companies, like I remember hearing the words thank you like once in the several years I was there. One of the startups at my previous job, I heard thank you, like they were all about company culture, like a positive company culture. And I heard thank you like 5 times in my first month. I was like, oh my God, like this is the happiest, it's like unicorns and rainbows. Like everyone loves me. It's just so great. So great here. So it's nice to be recognized and appreciated and just say thank you.
Because the opposite of that is when I was at Tandem Computers and I worked in the computer center there. The kind of the joke was, it wasn't really a joke, because you're afraid to go to the restroom if there were people in there because they were gonna tell you about, nobody said thank you, it was always the opposite. Hey, this isn't working. Hey, when you get a chance.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh, you're in IT. Can you
can you, I need
like,
this.
I just
Yeah.
go to the bathroom.
Christy, you had a question.
Oh, yeah, can you expand more on the consultancy you were talking about? So is it like, do you like create a company? Is it like a consultancy first? Or?
So the question is, Christy asked about starting a consultancy, expanding a little bit more than that.
So you can just get a web page or post on LinkedIn, like, hey, I've got these, like, come up with a name or whatever for your business and say, hey, I've got these skills, I can help you with whatever. That's the most basic thing. And then, figure out how much you're going to charge and, what's like, how are you going to advertise? Like, how are you going to get your name out there? Are you just going to put it on LinkedIn? You're going to talk to friends? Is it going to be like only a campus thing? Is it going to be friends and family? Is it going to be, you're going to take out Google AdWords and like advertise all over California? But that's just you as an individual. But it's, if you want to go like to kind of like the next level, then you could have yourself, or you could have you plus other people. But even if it's just yourself, you could have basically form a company in the eyes of the state, an LLC. So you file with the state, you like fill out this paperwork and like, okay, you're now an official business. And that helps protect you, because in case, like, say you accidentally like nuke someone's hard drive while you're trying to fix it, or like delete their data or whatever, and they sue you, that's not a good time, because if you're just an individual operating, doing this consulting, they sue you and take your money and your car. And if you have like whatever else you have, bye-bye. So what you can do is set this LLC, and as long as you operate it the right way, treating it as a separate entity, then the things hit the fan. then they sue the LLC and they get whatever's in the LLC instead of like, they can't come after you personally, in theory, if you do it right. Also, if you want to play a little safer, you can also get business insurance. But depends on what kind of business you're in, like maybe you don't necessarily need to go that extent, but just something to think about, like basically protecting yourself in case something goes wrong. Yeah, I think that answered the question. Yeah, so then like I mentioned previously, there's the whole like marketing, how do you get your name out there? What's the rate you're gonna charge? How are you gonna find your, what area you want to specialize in? How much time do you want to dedicate to it? If it takes off suddenly, do you want to, are you gonna put that on hold and finish, your degree? Or are you gonna try to do both? Are you gonna do one or the other? I mean, that's a good problem to have, but any other areas you wanted to know about that?
Just like how, like you give yourself experience when you don't have, I feel like in this market right now, like everyone has some sort of experience, and if you don't have that, I feel like it's really hard to get the first job. So it's just like more advice on like giving yourself that own experience.
Yeah, so for the
Yeah.
call,
Well,
yeah,
just go ahead.
how
That
do you-
experience.
yeah, without experience, how do you start that consulting business? So I mentioned the legal part of it, but then to actually get those first jobs. I mean, I remember when I started my consulting business, it takes a while. Like that first year or so is rough because you're just once you get to a certain point, it snowballs and your name's out there, and then people just keep word of mouth and referrals are like, oh yeah, I want to use you for this thing. But yeah, it's all about, like I mentioned, just like starting out your career, getting out there, networking, putting your name out there either on the website, LinkedIn, going to conferences, maybe giving a presentation on something, talking to your friends, at conferences, mentioning, hey, I'm trying to do this consulting business. Do you know of anything? Looking on LinkedIn for projects, or I don't know, anywhere else. Yes, anywhere that you can potentially find little projects. Or like putting up a flyer in the library, like, hey, if you need help with this, come see me. Just old school, like trying to start getting your name out there and having people trust you and hire you. So yeah, there's not really any magic to it. I mean, if you could go get a book or find some website on how do you start a business initially, it's just that whole marketing yourself and getting out there and hitting the pavement and making those connections.
Friends and family, even maybe at first, just doing some volunteer freebies just to get that experience out there. I don't know if they're still around, but I remember years ago, the Small Business Association used to have a lot of great advice and classes and help you get started on how to market yourself and start a business and that. So I think they're still around.
As far as I know, yeah.
SBA. So that's a government institution. So a lot of free stuff from them. And of course, probably a ton of stuff on the internet now and that. So
Is that kind of, I mean, it's not a silver bullet, sorry, but it's, I don't know, kind of just gotta get out there and work the farm and just plant the seeds, and just eventually it all starts growing.
and don't give up.
Oh yeah.
Keep positive. I mean, it's not gonna be none of this is easy,
Mhm.
but if you just look at it when someone once said, it's all experience, no regrets.
What do you mean? I got plenty of regrets.
Wow.
I thought there was another question somewhere.
So,
So I had a question about, you said there's usually security teams in the bigger companies. So what would the structure and the skill set of these teams look like? And how does DevSecOps affect anything, or does it with application security more towards developers focus now?
So the question is about bit larger organizations have the bigger security teams, and you're asking how does DevOps,
DevSecOps. It's the new
DevSecOps,
cool thing, right?
that's cool thing. DevSecOps, see these young, they're learning all this cool stuff now. How does that get involved with
How does that change that?
how does that change the dynamics of all this?
Okay, so the different areas of security, like I mentioned earlier, you've got legal compliance, incident response, application security, penetration testing, corporate security, all that kind of stuff. So those are like the big areas where a big team would specialize and have like sub teams. DevSecOps is, so that's for other people, that's when you have the developers, like the people writing the code, right, the business's application, and then the operations team who's like operating the AWS infrastructure, and then the security team, they all get together and have like a magic happy family with just like rainbows. It's just so happy. It gets along so well. Everything's perfect. No, that's the idea at least, but you know, they all have competing priorities. You know, maybe one team's jealous of the other team, or there's politics. Anyway, in theory, it's a nice conglomeration of the how to explain it. And also the other thing is like it's not really well defined either. It's been around for a few years now, but it means something different to everyone. But it's kind of combining the teams together so that you get security earlier in the process. It's more tightly integrated with the application. It's more tightly integrated with the infrastructure. You're either embedding security people in each of those teams, or you're having those teams maybe as part of the security team. So it's just like mixing all those three things together so you can work faster, in theory, more efficiently, and get security embedded in all of those functions. Does that kind of answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that, just to follow up, is that the direction that you think most companies are moving in?
The question was, is that the direction most people or companies are going in? It depends on the company. Large companies, more traditional companies, you know, just IBM or Wells Fargo or whoever the hell. I mean, I guess I can't name names, but like those, like think of those kind of companies, they're probably not going that route because they have a lot more inertia going with their traditional processes. You know, I've heard of some companies, some of those bigger companies going like maybe towards agile or what have you. I think some of those companies do want that like DevSecOps stuff, but the inertia and the red tape and the momentum of the company would require so much ripping and replacing and just it would be hard to just shoehorn that in there. I think maybe they'll get there eventually, but it's going to take a lot of change. Whereas small companies now that are starting and some more progressive, like medium-sized companies, yeah, that's what they do.
It's hard to turn a big ship on a dime. They got a lot invested and it just doesn't, I remember years ago, IBM, when the PC first came out, they realized it would take them 9 months just to ship an empty box because just the processes and bureaucracy and everything that they had involved just in getting anything out added 9 months to something. So it's hard in larger organizations sometimes. Not that they can't do it, it's just a little harder.
And if you can put sec in anything, like it makes it cool and you will get a lot of funding from the VCs. So like, oh, there's this new security acronym that we should check that out. Oh my God, it's on this. Here's a bunch of money. Go do a startup. So I've seen crazier things, trust me.
So the CSE classes here at UCSU should be CSEC classes. So there'd be even more.
See, you got the idea. You know what I'm talking
See,
about?
business, it's all making money.
You could change your middle name to security.
Yeah, security looked for me more than once, let's put it that way. Yeah.
Any other
Questions?
Okay.
All right, so I'll
You know where to find me on LinkedIn. And like I said, if you need, just shoot me a message if you got any questions or want to have a call about career advice or random security stuff.
So
Whether you like it or not.
I don't have your back.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate that.